Hey y'all, welcome back to Through with a Splash of Tea, a podcast where we either speak to brilliant people, do this thing one-on-one, or have best friend chats with my best friend T. I'm your host Cass, and let's get right into it. So, I used to know this guy. Who I used to work with. And when I used to work with him, he still lived at home with his parents. He was in his early 30s, still lived at home with his parents. He was, those people that are like genuinely kind. Like typically you can kind of tell. I feel, if somebody's like genuinely kind, and I feel like it's easier to tell when someone's genuinely kind when they're also a little awkward, a little not like strange, but like avoids eye contact sometimes, or like will make jokes that may be considered like a little nerdy but like they're funny, like that. Somebody that has personality like that and also is kind, I feel like a lot of the times it's genuine, and it's easier to detect whether genuine or not, if they also have that aligning low-key awkward sense to their personality. So that was this guy. He was so he was so just genuinely kind and a little awkward, but also very funny and informative too. Like, he knew a lot of stuff. He was so sweet. And we were supposed to, so he worked on a different schedule than mine, like a different shift than mine, but we are currently so short staffed that we were supposed to work together every Tuesday of, was it November or it was October. Every Tuesday of October, we were supposed to work together. And I was actually really excited because I was like, I'm very much like, as you guys can probably tell, I'm very much like, tell me everything. I want to know everything. So I was really, really excited because I didn't know enough about him that I wanted to know, but I'd worked with him enough in my current department, and when he was in another department, we would worked alongside each other enough for me to gauge like his personality and all that stuff, and like realize that he's like a really good guy. And he had like the best hair. And he told my coworker, and I love this so much, that he likes to have Sundays off to take his parents to their appointments, because his parents were a little older, so he would like help them go to their appointment. Like, just so sweet. And he said that he wanted to go to Australia, and that's the last like trip conversation we discussed. I was like, oh, like, where do you want to go? And he was like, Australia. And I was like, that's so awesome, I've heard such great things. And he was like, the only thing is the flight. And I was like, how long? And I think he said it was about like 24 hours, which I was like, damn. But I also told him like, Australia, like, that's amazing. And he was like, yeah, I know. But prior to that conversation, he had just recently, a few months ago, he had recently come back from a boys trip where he went to Las Vegas with a few of his guy friends. And this was like just a few months ago, which I'm really, really happy that he went on that trip, because I know that was a phenomenal trip for him. So I love that. I love everything about that. So yeah, his name was Robin. Like, Robin was the coolest, nicest, best haired, having little bit awkward, genuine person that I used to work with. And I no longer work with him because he passed away within a span of 6 days from meningitis. Yeah. So today's episode is going to be about grief. And we're going to talk about just different elements when it comes to grief. We're going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. We're just going to talk about grief. We're going to start off with talking about how strange it is to lose a coworker, because they're not family, and they're not necessarily a friend that you met like through your journey. Well, they are a friend that you met through your journey of life, but they're not a friend that you met in the facet of like high school or college, or not even necessarily somebody that you've might have known for so long, because it depends on how long you've been in that job, or it also depends on the shifts that you guys worked. So coworker is strange. It's like losing an acquaintance, but this acquaintance you see oftentimes more often than the people you live with. because you're always at work. You spend 8 hours a day at work. So oftentimes you're spending more time with your coworkers than you are the people that are your family. And that's just if you work on the same schedule as said coworker. But losing a coworker is strange because it's like, damn, do I know you enough to like grieve the way that my body is telling me that I should grieve? And I'm going to answer that, and I don't know if this is the correct answer, but I think it is, and I'm going to say yes. I think we should be grieving however our body is telling us that we need to grieve, and whether you think it's too deep or whether you think you're not doing enough, whatever your body is telling you that you need to do in order to release those emotions or in order to get to an element of normality, I think is what needs to be prioritized. So your grief doesn't need to be justified. It just needs to be worked through. No matter what element it's coming to you in, no matter how severe it's coming to you, it doesn't need to be rationalized. It doesn't need to be figured out. It doesn't need to be dissected. It doesn't need to be organized. It just needs to be worked through the best way that you can do that. And there's no manual to do that. It's just the best way that you can do that. Longevity. I want to talk a little bit about longevity. Like, how long should I be grieving for? Or how long do I need to grieve for? Or like, is grief even a necessity? Like, do I need to pass through these emotions? So actually, let me rewind a little bit and go back to the necessity. Let's start there and then go to longevity. So I've found and I've learned that when it comes to grief, it is unfortunately, I freaking wish it was one of those things that if you forget for long enough, it will simply go away. It's not. It's not one of those things. And those of you that know that, then you already know that. I'm just reiterating what you already know, that you can literally turn your back to this grief. Turn your back. Like, okay, I'll pick up another job. I'll pick up another hobby. I'll have another kid. I'll keep myself busy. I'll just keep myself busy. I can keep myself busy. You can literally do that for as long as you please. Once your guard is down, the grief is going to be there for you. So be like, hey, remember me? I'm still here. It's like taxes. You can't avoid paying taxes. It's just like taxes. And if you're not from the U.S., when you live in the U.S., taxes and death are the two things that you can never avoid paying or avoid dealing with. And death is universal, but taxes, they're coming for you. It's like that. Grief is like taxes. It is always going to be there until you work through it. And that is something that I had to learn the hard way. That is something that people have constantly, that is something that I have constantly that is something that I constantly hear from intellectuals, that grief is never going to be something that you can simply bypass or simply do away with or simply tarnish with time. It will always be there waiting for you whenever you're ready to open that door. And not only is it just there waiting for you silently, no, baby. It's there changing your emotions, changing your triggers, adding new, working, like it's rewiring certain things with you, where it's rewiring certain things within you, where you will sometimes get to a point where you're like, okay, I dealt with that situation 3 years ago by masking it with work and having another child and pouring into my husband and doing this and doing that, I masked it with all that stuff. Why do I now have these random triggers when things aligned with that situation happen to me? Normal things. Why do I have triggers? Somebody passed away and he loved white balloons. White balloons were his thing ever since he was a baby. He was fascinated by white balloons. Every time I now see a white balloon, but he passed away 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 14 years ago. But now every time I see a white balloon, it angers me. Like, I get angry. Not to the point where I'm trying to fight a white balloon, but it literally gets me so worked up that the next person I talk to, I'm aggravated when I talk to them. But I worked on that. You didn't work on it. You just shut the door to it. And it's still there. And it's still growing and getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger and creating new triggers and changing the way that you see things and changing the way that you see the world. That is what happens when you just decide not to work on it. Now, this is not me telling you that you need to go out there tomorrow and work on or face your triggers or face the grief that you're dealing with or that you've left dormant for so long. This is not me telling you to do that, because that is a lot of work. But this is just me opening your mind to the idea of how necessary it is to deal with whenever you're ready. That's what this is. So now let's transition to longevity, which is kind of what I just touched base on a little bit. How long? Like, how long do you have to deal with it? How long can you leave it dormant for until it goes away? How long? Just how long? And that's something that I constantly ask myself, even though I know the answer, but I always ask myself because it's just like, why is that the answer? The answer is as long as it takes, as long as you need it to, as long as you need to continue to grieve this person is what is how long it's going to take. And it sucks even more when it's somebody that is like, it sucks even more when it's somebody that you know was a good soul. Like, you know, like, I went to Robin's wake and I got there 2 hours after the start time. It wasn't only 2 hours long. Don't, not too much. I didn't get there when it was ending. Not too much. But I got there 2 hours after the start time, and it was still like packed with people. And I wouldn't say packed. Okay, I wouldn't say packed. It was still they're definitely full of people. And I was told by people there that by people that got there 2 hours prior when it started, that it was packed when it started. I say that just to reiterate, like, because if you're a piece of shit, your funeral's not going to be packed. It's not going to be full. It's not going to be, people aren't going to take the time and the energy to come and make sure that you are laid to rest peacefully if you did not provide any peace to people while you were living. Like, that's just not the case. So I say that Robin's funeral was packed in the beginning, and even 2 hours later was still full. And I left about 20 minutes prior to close, and it was still prior to end, and it was still full. I say all that to say that goes to show you how genuine of a person he was and how kind-hearted, and he was just so nice. He was just such a good guy. He was such a good guy. And the link at the bottom of this screen and at the bottom of this video continuously and in the bio of all locations that this podcast is dropped, that link is to Robin's GoFundMe, and that money is going to go directly to his parents. So if you do want to donate to said GoFundMe, feel free to just type in that link at the bottom and you'll be directed right to it, and feel free to donate whatever your heart desire is. But I just wanted to reiterate the fact that this man's funeral was full, and it never stopped being full. And that just goes to show you again how genuine of a person he is and how he was. Ooh, yeah. That tense correction was a little crazy for me. I don't know. He was a good guy, you guys. He was such a good guy. And I want to talk real quick about, I know this podcast is all over the place, but my brain is currently all over the place. I want to talk real quick about his best friend. So Robin had the pleasure of working alongside his best friend, like one of his best friends that he's known literally. I think they met when they were kids. I think they met in elementary school. was either elementary school or middle school, one of those two. And we all worked together, me, Robin, his best friend, and like there's a slew of us that still work for the company. And I just, my heart still breaks for his best friend. And I wish, like, I wish with so much in me that I could just like I wish I could just take the pain away from him. Like, I wish I could just, because I see this man still walking around. And like, let's reiterate, not reiterate, let's rewind a little bit, because I think the day that we found out, the following day, his best friend Lou was off of work. And then because I was off too, I can't remember what day I found out, but I can't remember what day I found out, but the following day, I think both Lou and I were off work. And then the next day after that, I'd returned to work. And when I was talking to my coworkers later on that week about like their interactions with Lou, because as coworkers, we've all been there for a while, for years and years and years, and we've had like so much fun together, like whether it be at work, whether it be holiday parties, like we've had a good time together, but we've never been in an element or in a space of grief together. We've never grieved together. We've never had sorrow like just hovering over the workspace together. So when he had returned, was speaking to some of my coworkers, and I was like, okay, so like, have you been talking to Lou? Like, what's been going on? And a lot of them have been like, either like, I've been trying to avoid him, I've been keeping it light, or I've been keeping it light and then like having quick conversations and then going, And I understand, and I'm no better. That I already told myself that I just had to keep my distance that week, when I returned to work in regards to him, just because like, I couldn't keep, like, myself mentally, I couldn't keep it together. And then I already knew that. And then when I had seen him from afar, in his first day back, and you guys, already from then, my heart was just breaking and I couldn't do it. But I say all that to say, I'm sorry. Lou, if you ever see this, if this ever comes across your YouTube feed, I just want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how awkward we were with you that week. And I'm sorry that this is something that you even ever had to experience. I thought I was going to have to end there, but I don't. I'm sorry that this is something that you ever had to experience. I'm so sorry. And I'm sorry that we didn't know what to do or what to say other than being there for you, other than showing up to the wake for you, other than trying to keep it light for you, other than not bringing up Robin during that first week for you, but also for us, also because it was heavy on us, also for that. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry that grief makes us awkward, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you lost your best friend. I want to round off this episode by saying that there's always, I don't care what the situation is, I don't care. I literally do not care what it is. There is always a silver lining. There is always a silver lining. There has to be. There has to be, because that gives us hope, and hope allows us to keep going. So in any situation, there's a silver lining. I got to meet Robin about 3 years ago, and I got to know him. I got to learn about him. I got to laugh with him. And then, only, I want to say maybe, I don't know how long it was, but after that, after like only 3 years ago, me like getting to know him and like working, like, seeing each other in passing, I got the opportunity of having him work within the department that I already worked in the department that also his best friend worked in. I got the opportunity to get to know him even further. Not only work with him in passing and quickly, or see him in passing and work with him quickly, but to get the opportunity to see him train, to see him get to an element of making more money, to get to an element of buying new things, to get to an element of taking boys trips. And I don't know if he was doing it before, but I got to see that. I got to talk about Australia. Like, not everyone is able to go to Australia. And I knew that he was going to be able to do it based on our income and based on the changes that transition had brought to him. I got the chance to meet Robin. And that is a silver lining that nobody can take from me. I got a chance to say that I was able to meet him. I was able to have conversations with him. I was able to really talk to him and get to know him. And not everyone can say that. And that is a blessing. And I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the fact that God was able to allow me to meet him and know him for a few years and make quirky jokes and laugh at awkwardness and laugh with him and all this stuff. I was able to have a good time. And that's, I thank you. I thank God for that. That's all. I thank God for that. And he was a great guy. And I know he's up in heaven having a great time. So I think he's having a good time up there. So I just wanted to end this episode there. Thank you for watching if you watched. Thank you for listening if you listened. Through with a Splash of Tea can be caught every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on all streaming platforms, including YouTube. Thanks so much. Bye now.